We got the lovely filmmaker Mark Hensley on the show tonight. I'm your host, Sully. We are dissecting the Mad Max franchise.
The franchise itself, I like. I like the first ones. I think, for the time that they were made in, I think they were standout films. I think the Thunderdome still is for what it is, a really good film. There's a
cult movies that have somehow, because of their popularity, their practical physical car stunts, they've been entered even into the Guinness Book of Records as the most profitable film ever made. The first one,
let's face it, the first Mad Max was clearly a super low budget indie film, and it spawned this huge franchise. I will give the creator and director, really props for that, because it was certainly something different. I think at that point it was kind of really one of the first really true what's that genre? The
Australian New Wave is what it's.
Well, yeah, but also the period, the whole
post-apocalyptic.
Oh, yeah, it really was one of the truly first popular post-apocalyptic films when you think about it. I can't really think of anything else that could really meet that criteria at that point. I can't think of
other than Escape from New York, which was a different kind of
film. But that was, in fact, I think Escape from New York was
more of a dystopian.
After that. I think that was after that. I could be wrong, but I think it was after that.
Yeah, no, you're right, because there was A Boy and His Dog, but that was more satirical,
It's I thought it was it was really good, but I think for me where the Fury Road kind of, for me personally, when I saw it, it's like it's people driving through the desert, It's what else was there? There was no real story.
It was totally made for the Fast and Furious crowd, and I know some people are going to be like, sacrilege, how can you say that? I'm like, well, because it doesn't have the same daring escapade. It's just
it doesn't, because, and again, and I've said this online, it's like I find it, I just don't see there's a real story there. There's no,
I went to it with a friend, and my other online pals were actually why we formed this podcast together. We were just like, this is not a movie, because like the first three, they're cult movies. You can laugh at the goofy costumes and everything, but they have a vision. They have establishing shots. They built their own practical sets, and it was the brainchild of producer Brian Kennedy and, again, George Miller. And they felt like they were having fun. And when I saw that Fury Road was getting nominated for Best Picture, it's like, whoa.
What? Exactly. That's my thing. It's just
that's where I was like, what are you talking about? Because there's
honestly,
zero dialogue in this. There's
no story.
I can't even say there's and I can't. Who was the villain, really?
And really, when you think about it, I was thinking about it this morning. It's like they kind of like storyboarded all these fucking chases and stuff, and then it seems like then they kind of at the end were like, well, what's the story? And it's like, we'll have it to do with water. And I was thinking about that this morning, and I'm like, this is like fucking Waterworld in reverse.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean? It's like, now they're not looking for water. Now they're not looking for land, they're looking for water. Whereas in, Waterworld, they're looking for land and not water. And is there really that much difference? When you really think about it, is there that much difference between Waterworld and fucking Fury Road? I don't think so.
Well, and the villains, the villains would always be wacky, but they would often have some funny lines.
Yeah,
I
exactly
saw this one, I was reminded more of like a B picture, like say maybe Cyborg, It's just like, but see, those have those goofiness are kind of part of the charm. This wants to be more kind of like Blade Runner, where it's very advanced and it's a reboot of an established saga.
Exactly. Hold on a second. Let me close this door so it doesn't. But again, it's just like, okay, the visuals and all this stuff, it's all good and dandy, but even there, the visuals.
Yeah.
The cinematography itself doesn't blow me away. And I think
that's what's so weird. You look at the cinematographer; it's the same crowd, and so why is it that we're getting too spoiled? I don't think it is. I think you're onto something. I think we've seen too much. We need something new. And
yeah, I think that they focus so much.
I found Furiosa's mechanical arm kind of interesting, but it really doesn't mean anything to me.
You know, like what was the point of that? I don't know. Just we got to do something different with her. So let's give her a mechanical arm. Like, yeah, but so instead of developing her character, we're going to go like the cheap, easy way and just do some kind of weird thing with her body.
And
it's like I didn't give a shit about any of the characters first.
Totally. And the original Mad Max, you can see how it would appeal to any kind of crowd. It would appeal.
Exactly.
It's what you were watching if you weren't watching Charles Bronson beat someone up. Hey, who's this unknown named Mel Gibson who's taking out the trash is like a future marshal. And then you got the Star Wars type thing where, again, just making the Australia wildlife look like a wasteland. That was intriguing. And I Beyond on Thunderdome is kind of the Return of the Jedi. Some people like it. Other people think it's a weak close because part 2 was just so epic in scale.
Exactly. But
I just don't really find myself revisiting those original movies. I respect them, but I've just always been more of an Indiana Jones kind of guy where I like seeing a tribute to earlier cinema while being its own fascinating adventure and world. And
I agree. And I think the thing for me with when I think about Fury Road, literally the only thing I can remember from that movie is driving through the desert. Charlize Theron's in it.
Yeah.
And the guy that's strung up that's playing guitar. Like that's literally the only thing I can remember from the movie.
I remember the Conan O'Brien parody more than I remember the guy on fire. You know, it's
you know, it's like, so to me, that's not a good movie. And then I see people trying to attach all these, you know, philosophical meaning to it, and just
my sister totally went into the whole "this is a feminist film." I'm like,
but you got to look at the subtext. What
subtext?
What subtext? Or you know, and I see that a lot of times with movies,
and they're very snobby about it. It's like,
so snobby. Like
you're the same. I saw so many people go against their compromises. I thought you were saying you respect people's opinions, and then I saw so many other people who are hard on all other kinds of adventure movies,
right?
And they made an exception to this. And they can't explain it. That's what bites me. If you can't explain it and you're just going to keep laughing at someone's comment and being a dick in return, then we need to just stop having this conversation.
The funny thing is these are the same people that will talk shit about superhero movies.
Or that Scorsese or Spielberg need to hang it up. Or
they're the same ones who will, you know, as far as I'm concerned,
I hate Christopher Nolan, Jordan Peele, but I want to see his movie because it drives me crazy. It's like they want to watch something. I'm like, that's already a waste of time if you're watching something.
But Fury Road is a fucking no better than any other superhero action movie. The only difference is, and I actually said this the other day online, is like, as far as I'm concerned, the first Iron Man has more action in it and is better the first 30 minutes than Fury Road in its entirety. You know, there's nothing in Fury Road that makes me go, wow, this is a great movie. It's like,
I think a lot of people who had never seen an action movie before or who are gearheads, I think that's the main crowd. But see, that's the difference between this one and the original trilogy. You could like the originals even if you weren't a fan as necessarily revenge movies or automobile-driven narratives.
Yeah.
It was appealing to the Walter Hill crowd of The Driver or any other kind of just adventure movie. But with this, it does kind of make you puzzles you a bit because you're just like,
Because, you know, my thing is I like a good action movie or superhero movie as much as a good drama
or art house experimental mystery.
If it's done well. I mean, I was watching Dark City again the other night.
Oh, sweet.
It's such a good movie. You know, I
would have actually applauded them. And see, this is what also drives me crazy. Neither the people who like it or the filmmaker himself, George Miller, can explain to you where this is in the realm. They can't explain if it's a reboot or a sequel or a remake.
To me, it's just,
why did they let him get away with that when everyone else, gets accused online of ruining the fandom. It's
exactly
too much fascism and favoritism on that part from a geek standpoint.
And this is another pet peeve of mine, where people will just accept a film based on who makes it, not on how good it is.
And you got to fess up. Everyone's going to make a turd once in a while.
I have directors who have movies who I think are great, and then they start making shit.
Right. Either they got too full of themselves, or it's going to divide by audience. But Dark City would have been a cool place to go. I would have loved it if they had made the city more futuristic. Then I would, even if I didn't like it, I would have been like, see, at least you did something different with your pre-established thing. I would have been okay with it, even if they brought Mel Gibson back. I know it's a piece of shit, but it would have made sense.
Yeah.
I think we could have put in away our moral compass for 1-2 hours.
I think so.
And just said he deserves to take the role that he originally did. I'll take it over another Lethal Weapon.
Because I love Tom Hardy. I think he's a brilliant actor. He did nothing for me in that movie.
I thought he was still in Bane mode, and Nicholas Hoult was the biggest offense for me. I know some people like him, some people hate him based on personally or as an actor. I just found his voice very grating, and I love Charlize, and she did nothing.
She did nothing either, and I think that maybe had a lot to do, from what I understand, with the chemistry on set, which was not there.
I did hear that they didn't get along, and that's what's so wild too. Is you see and then I would see comments whenever that made it clickbait. Oh, these actors are so ungrateful. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. If you're in the hot sun, no amount of money will make you stop. Crying your soul out. I mean,
exactly.
I know Russell Crowe's a piece of work, but I can't blame him for being pissed every day on the set of Gladiator. You're just literally sweating every day. Lord of the Rings. You've heard the stories about crew members not showering. There was no point.
Well, okay, now you take a movie like Gladiator. They started shooting that movie, and they basically had no script.
Yeah,
and yet
they made it better as they went along.
They made a great movie. From what I understand, they worked for. Miller says he worked for 10 years getting this movie.
And it just doesn't show.
I know this is a thing. So when people say, yes, but it's about the world building and look at all the time they put in and the time they went in to design these action scenes and this and that. And I'm just like, I don't fucking care, because.
And those are the same people who would talk smack about people who got in shape. Oh, I could do that. No, you can't.
Exactly.
Look at that workout routine of.
It's like going to a restaurant, a 5-star restaurant, ordering and the meal, and you get it, and you're like, this tastes like shit. And then somebody comes over and says, but the chef, he grew these ingredients himself, and he designed this masterpiece himself, and he spent years perfecting it. And it's like, I don't care. It still tastes like shit. Just because he did all that work does not automatically mean
that's where it's nostalgia that plays into it. I have people who go to the Saltgrass in my town who act like it is still great. And both me, my dad, and my uncle were all like, it may have been great back in the day, but right now these ingredients, they're not kinetic. They're not taking off. They're not standing out. It's just a very bland steak.
And I think that, and I don't know, maybe it's, I still just don't understand how people can think that this is, because and
they can't explain that. That's
they can't explain it. This came up because they were bitching about Fury Road didn't win Best Cinematography, but Revenant did. Well, that's because Revenant is first off a much better movie. It actually has a story and a plot.
Yeah, I don't care for it, but there is a beginning, middle, and end. There's a beginning, middle, and end. You can outline it. You can sum up the highlights. You can. Yeah.
And the thing is the way it was shot completely enhances the mood of the film. Whereas in Fury Road, I don't know. It's like it's there's no real, what I would consider, there's nothing there that is actually enhancing the mood of the film. It all looks very pretty, and it's just there's just no emotion to any of it. And for me, if there's no emotion or story to a film, I literally don't care what else goes on in it, because it's just pretty pictures. Who cares?
Absolutely. I mean, there's movies that have a great plot, and sometimes the cinematography kills it because it feels too robotic, or it just feels like a corporate
and again,
video.
Sometimes there's a great movie and the cinematography may not be great.
Yeah.
But you're still captivated by the movie.
Oh, absolutely. There's horror movies that are good, but they're not scary when you look back on them. There's action movies that really aren't all that exciting or have very generic fights, but because you like the story, that made up for the lack of substance or content.
Exactly. And then so I don't know. I don't know why people are so hardcore. Maybe it's because it is who made the movie, why they're so
I can't revere them. I saw so many people saying this is better than a Roland Emmerich or Michael Bay movie. I'm like, why do I care about them right now? This is not who we're talking about.
But you know what? It's the same.
It really is the same.
This is what I mean. Why?
This is if Michael Bay just really, really didn't care, and he was at Pearl Harbor.
If you're going to shit all over those two guys, then talk this movie up, I think that's bullshit. It's I mean, I'll say this: I thought the first Transformers movie was awesome, and then it was shit after that.
Yeah,
it was fun.
It became again. I mean, it's funny with Transformers because kind of like how Fast and Furious is car commercials with plots that are only make sense on a Sunday morning cartoon level.
Exactly.
Transformers is wild because this is like it was already based on a cartoon that was designed to sell toys, and it's an even bigger dense. This is like people who like their cartoon more than it actually deserved to be liked. It's and same thing with these movies. I see people who that's literally their first intro to action movies. I'm more of an Expendables guy, but I know plenty who never liked those 80s or 90s icons, so they can't even last 10 minutes for those. So it's pick your poison and just justify.
I mean, the reality is, okay, when you go watch Expendables, you know what you're going to watch. Right. You're not going to get fucking Shakespeare. And I will say this: I just finished mixing Tulsa King for Stallone.
Oh, congrats.
And working on that show, I will say Stallone knows what he's doing. Like, he is not the star who he is by chance. He knows his audience. He knows exactly how to, I mean, because I saw it happen as we were working on the show, changes that he would have them do in editorial to make sure that the character is displayed right. There was a scene where he says this line, and he came back later and said, I want the first bit of that line. We need to cut that out. And we cut it out, and he was so 100% right, because
he's aware of his brand, which is how he sounds, how he looks.
It's not even just his brand. He knows how that character is supposed to be portrayed, and a single line or word changes the whole meaning of that character.
Oh, yeah.
He knows that, and he really is very, very good at what he does. He knows his characters. He knows how to make a good product. He really does. I mean, you got to remember, he wrote Rocky, and
right. How do I make a character who stutters, intriguing, fascinating?
Exactly.
And
so
here he's with a guy. He's like a stranger in a strange land, kind of. He's forming his mafia.
So so when it comes to something like Expendables, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's making. He's not making high art. He's making an action movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
an over the top crowd pleaser. I see so many people who don't get certain jokes. I'm like, oh, trust me. As the fans who have seen his movies 100 times, they totally know what he's referencing.
Exactly. And so, and again, that's the problem I have when people try to talk a movie like Fury Road Up, is that movie is an action film, but the problem is it missed the main part, which is the reason why things are happening, because there's no plot, there's no story, there's nothing to.
I think they had just been waiting on it for so long, but that doesn't explain the ones who just generally don't like movies. Like I still, again, I will see people who were like, I will fight someone. I'm like, well, okay. if you're getting way too emotional about a movie, I already don't want to talk to you.
Right, exactly.
I've seen a similar thing kind of with the new Top Gun lately. I've seen people who,
oh my God,
is like, they knew the original was a recruitment ad. I've even seen people who didn't like the original, but like this one. And I'm just like, just explain what you like, don't like, and move on. Just,
I saw the, I remember going back and watching the original Top Gun, and I was like, wow, this is really a bad movie. And then I watched the new one. I'm like, wow, this is just as bad. It's, I mean,
it's amazing what some people find fascinating, but they just can't describe. And I was going in, like, and then I got accused of being a nitpicker. I'm like, no, it's just very, very distracting to me how I don't care about anyone. And again, like I saw other people who didn't understand the homage to the original Star Wars with the final airplane scene. And I'm like, no, it's, if you've seen it, you either haven't seen Star Wars in a while or
exactly.
But then I'll get the other, oh, well, everyone's a knockoff of other movies. And it's like, and these are the same ones who hate when a movie is a knockoff. I'm like, I'm just kind of, I do the whole Hitchcock De Palma thing. I'm like,
right,
I'm going to do a homage, do it very well.
Exactly. Instead of, you know what it is? It's like, if you're going to do a cover song, don't copy the original.
Yes.
Do your own version.
Do an emo version of a Guns N' Roses song.
Yes, and do it well. Yes. Yeah, I have no problem when people do a brilliant cover of an original song and make it their own. And that's the difference between being a copycat and doing an homage, is that you can take these ideas and because it's true, it's very hard to do.
That's where we are kind of with J.J. Abrams. Some people like him, other people don't. I'm just like, nothing personal.
I think he's done some great stuff. I think he's like any other director. He's done some really cool, great stuff. And he's done some really like, whatever, dude. I mean, I thought the first Star Trek he did.
It was okay.
I thought he did a really great job in, how should I put it? Realigning the timeline and changing it. I think it was first.
It was the only way it worked. I can't blame him for the time.
That's exactly it. It was a very bold move, and I think it was. If you're going to do it, I think he had to do that kind of a thing. You can't just do Star Trek with. If you're going to, kind of reboot a franchise like that, you can't just start with completely different characters because they've been doing that on TV, and that's
too much.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yes, way too much. But I think that first Star Trek movie, I still really enjoy it because it's.
Oh, it's scored, it's shot.
The way it's shot, but the little things even. It's like right at the very end, towards the end when.
I mainly applauded the casting. I was like,
oh yeah, totally.
Was very good at playing outsiders, so that makes sense for him to be the introvert, unemotive alien that's Spock.
I love at the very end when Kirk walks onto the bridge again. And he does his little impersonation of the original Captain Kirk. Just this, just a little hint about. I'm like
a little break in the fourth wall. It's kind of
exactly that kind of stuff is cool. I actually also think that what he did with what was it called? What was the first Star Wars movie that he did?
Force Awakens.
Yes, I understand also why he made that movie the way he did. Because he was introducing a whole new generation of people really to Star Wars. And so I understand the approach that he took. And I think he did a really good job. I mean, it was basically a remake of one of the first ones.
Yeah, but, I'm fine with that shot. I have an issue with just the story and the casting. This goes back to our rule number one is like everything else can be working, but you just got to say in your review what you like and don't like. And most people will just only focus on what they like or what they hated.
Exactly. I got to say, I actually think the best Star Wars reboot so far, in my opinion, was Rogue One.
I'm with you. And I know some people who didn't care for the main character and they were like, you don't want to see Andor. I'm like, no, check it out.
Yeah,
I can understand the actor's kind of basic, but
You know what I loved?
The plot line
that everyone died at the end because they had to. You know,
it's the only way it ends, and
that's
these
it.
are the unsung heroes. They kind of imply, but a lot of people. It's funny. That's a good point too. Like Mad Max, there's no real consequence, but they kind of got away the first 3 times by just having very likable, atypical characters. And this one, I didn't feel like anyone was going to die or have anything different. And I left briefly to get 2 hot dogs for my friend and I. And I asked my friend, so what happened? Oh, well, they fought and now they're working together and now they're on the road again. And I was like, so I didn't miss anything.
No.
If I can pause a movie or say keep going and really not miss all that much, that just really compromises my integrity to sit for something.
For me, it's funny because if I'm watching a movie and I know I can get up at any given point and go to the bathroom and do whatever and not have to worry, and I know
I'm back 90 minutes later.
Who cares? You know, this is the thing. And
that's how I was with the new Jurassic World and even Terminator Genesis.
So fucking bad. Oh my God.
Well, and I saw people who were like, I love the visuals. I'm like, no, that looks just as bad as a lesser CGI movie. And again,
here's my thing: is like, I don't care about the visuals. If there's no story, then
no story,
who cares how good the visuals are?
And get this: I saw one of some pals who hate how unrealistic some movies get, but they stuck with Genesis. I'm like, why? In the first 2, even maybe part 3, I believed that someone broke their bone or couldn't get up, and anything else implausible, I went with it. And in Genesis, people are doing superhero type moves, and it's like that's not part of the logic.
Exactly. No.
I saw one person who thought Jurassic World looked better than the original. I'm like, okay, we are going to so disagree there because
it's oh my God,
they made it practically the first time, and
it
looks like a video game with those. And that was kind of my complaint about some superhero movies I didn't like, is like if it feels too much like, it's funny how based on your format kind of determines your enjoyment. If it feels like a lost TV pilot, it just doesn't work as a theatrical movie meant to launch a franchise.
Another thing I've noticed is that, and I've seen this happening a lot with, they'll come out with a really good, you'll have like, I don't know, what is a good example? Okay, let's take Iron Man, for example. The first.
That was a good format we already established. Beginning, middle, and end. The character's not the same that he was at the end. At the end, he becomes Iron Man.
Yeah, and what happens every single time as the series moves on, the bad guys get bigger and bigger and bigger.
There are people who he's unintentionally wronged in some way or form, and he's like having to be
in size. Though you'll notice that the bad guys become these huge fucking monsters,
big monsters. There's some fun homages to giant robot movies, and even in the main Avengers storyline, they always give him some specific dialogue. Like in part 1, like him or hate him, part 1, they establish, I don't want to be the team leader. At the end, well, I have no choice. I must be the team leader. By part 3 and 4, they continue on his whole storyline. And even if people who haven't seen the Spider-Man movies, dead on, okay, I'm an inspiration to Captain America and Spider-Man, and I got to inspire them to be the next dude who's in charge of this team.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's so. Yeah, I don't understand. I think that I don't understand why people try and attach some higher philosophical meaning to Mad Max Fury Road.
As so many have. I mean, the most you can get is probably, this is what happens if car dealerships and wrestling ruled the world.
That's right.
That's and exactly logic left. But that's all I ever
got. That's exactly it.
The Ringling Brothers bought out Ford, and the world got out of control.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's kind of how I look at it. And it's just like, and again, I don't understand how those people will look at Mad Max and have all this psychological bullshit that doesn't really exist. And then they'll turn around and shit all over some other action.
I just prefer Escape New York. That's a simple one and done.
Exactly. Totally.
Hero who's not really a hero, an anti-hero who must do an impossible task that he has no faith in, but he does the impossible mission anyway, because at the end of the day, he gets the one thing he wants, freedom.
And that's the thing that for me was still really missing in Fury Road, is like I don't know who the real hero was and what their motivation was. Truly, I don't.
Absolutely.
Like,
I mean, like or hate the new Blade Runner, I at least applauded the first 20 minutes. They're rebuilding the world that was built 30 plus years ago, and now they're going their own way with the storyline. And I think a lot of people too much want to just reference earlier shots, or they want to insert a new storyline.
For me, the problem I had with the new Blade Runner was I didn't care about the characters.
Oh, let's see. And this is what I like about this. That and this is what I like when people outline what's working or not working in a scene. So many people will just go to the basics. It's too long, yada yada.
No,
I do or do not like the story.
Yeah, the story is fine. The problem is when I think of the original Blade Runner, which is one of my favorite all-time movies, I think it's brilliant because, in spite of what Roy Batty has done, the just squishing people's heads and just
and just like Gladiator, the actor was bigger than the role and went beyond the script.
But just he was such an evil robot, basically. But right at the very end,
he wants emotion.
You feel sorry for him.
Yes.
Even for him, you feel for that last scene. You watch that and you feel sorry for him.
Absolutely. He was always, to me, when I saw how Star Trek Next Gen and other movie, even RoboCop interpreted cyborgs, I always got that same kind of gist from Blade Runner, where it's like they're doing what most cyberpunk novel adaptations just fail to do: show the nature of a machine, and if there's any semblance of a human emotion in there.
Yes, and that's what they did right at the very end. It's like all through that, you're like, God, that guy's fucking evil. Oh my! And then you see that last.
Why do I feel so sad for him? Because
that speech,
I understand him.
Exactly, and that's the thing, and that's what I missed in the new Blade Runner. That kind of a connection with the characters. The actors were great. It was well shot. It looked great.
No, that's fine. But at least you can explain it. I saw so many people who went to it and they hadn't seen the original and they thought they were getting into a Matrix movie. I'm like, well, yes and no. It was kind of the Matrix of its day, but this is just pure cyberpunk, like Altered Carbon.
Yeah, exactly. This is not Matrix. This is future real
Matrix
world.
Is like a that's what I call a Cliff Notes version,
Yeah, exactly.
Easier, more accessible. But there's other people who, I mean, Dark City is another one. That was one, never watch that on TV. They chop it up so bad where stuff does not make sense.
There's a director's cut now.
Yeah, and I'm tempted to get the Blu-ray, but it's just interesting how some movies deserve.
That's what I watched the other night, is the director's cut.
Some versions are just better than other movies. I can only watch the extended cut of Lord of the Rings. I know that's a big time suck, but there's so much extra detail that enhances my enjoyment of the movie. Same thing if you want to do T2 extended with the flashbacks that knock yourself out. I have been introducing people lately to the uncut versions of Heaven's Gate, Waterworld, and Johnny Mnemonic. Those are way different movies, but it's hard to imagine if you've seen the uncut or the cut up theatrical version, which is, awful.
We always call that Johnny Submaronic, but
Submaronic, yeah. And I when watching this director's cut, it's like, there's no way this is going to be better. But it was rescored, re-edited.
Really? The new version?
It's a way different beginning, so you actually know what the fuck's going on. You get more scenes with the villains.
Right.
So because that was the biggest problem. It's more like a Blade Runner type movie. When you watch it, the cut up version that most people outside of Japan saw, it was a confusing Total Recall movie. You're like, I don't care why everyone's killing each other, and this is hammy. It looks like a Babylon 5 episode that's not shot. It's just.
I'll have to watch that. I'll have to watch it then. I'll have to watch the recap.
I will email you a copy.
Because I remember when I saw the original, the cut that everybody's seen. I mean, there were things in it that I liked, but when
it felt like a B picture on a big budget.
What the fuck is this? It's like it was. Yeah, exactly. So I'll have to do that. Yeah, for sure. Huh.
But I get it. Some movies, I mean, I saw that people doing this with the Snyder Cut of Justice League. I saw people doing this again, with Heaven's Gate or Waterworld. If you have a bad association with a movie, I mean, there's some movies where you could tell me we all have a little bit of apprehensions about some things. If someone told me there's a better version of Mommy Dearest, or I don't know, some movie I don't care for, it's going to be really hard to convince me, you should sit through it again. But some movies are really worth it. Is just, if there's a better cut of Fury Road, I will actually sit down and watch it,
it's funny because I think that
if there's more character development, that might make me love the movie.
Maybe there is, and maybe there's stuff that should have been cut out. Maybe it's too long.
Because some people will do fan edits, and those are fun. And at the same time, I'm not really as for it as I probably should be, because I
think a perfect movie that would benefit from a fan edit would be Hateful Eight.
Yeah. Take the parts of the Netflix cut and the theatrical cut, and that actually worked.
There's so much bullshit in that doesn't need to be in there. First off, and I bet that movie, if it was cut down to an hour and a half, would be a really good movie.
There's always movies you wait for a third version to pop up on cable TV or what have you.
That's probably one of my least. That is my least favorite Tarantino movie.
Yeah, and you mentioned Stallone earlier. I would like a better version of the TV version of Cobra incorporated with the theatrical cut one day.
Right, exactly.
Because the TV edit, people were like, "Wow, this is way more intense and has a lot of character development." I'm like, well, he cut it out because there's deleted scenes that need. I think I saw that with Aragon was one. It was kind of an infamous dragon movie, but I saw the deleted scenes as like, that told me everything I need to know about the prophecies and the magic, and they cut it out. Yeah, it's 2 minutes. Why'd they cut it out?
Weird, isn't it? It's weird how they'll just cut some things out because
studios think audiences are too dumb, and then they think, oh, they don't want to see that. They want sex and violence, and they'll do it even with kids' movies. They use that logic. You're like, oh, they just want to see guns and fire and magic.
Man, when we're working on stuff and we're mixing stuff, and they have added lines that they'll pop in there just last minute to like, for example, well, we should add that line in there so the audience remembers that that's the character that they've been watching for the last 20 episodes. Like, you can spot a network note a mile away, like literally.
Always. Yeah, the pilot is always different than the main movie. You can tell. I mean, I'm the worst. I'm not a CinemaSins guy who goes and, oh, look at this and that, but I will find moments where it's like, okay, that's a stand-in or stunt double. The hand's different. My sister's the biggest at just the locations. He's like, there's no plant like that. And I'm like, okay, well, they filmed it in Georgia. They didn't film it in Louisiana.
Exactly. Yeah, no.
And it is what it is. But like you say, we see it so much because there's just always like 5 last minute things. He's like, oh,
exactly,
looks different.
Exactly. Now, another thing I think that happens a lot is people will like a movie because the insane amount of publicity and promotion that it gets.
Yes, it's now even more dead in the water. The internet's the worst. People are more likely to pull up a TMZ article. And then I will see people who will even gawk and go, "Oh, I just saw the trailer." I'm like, the trailer's not the movie. You have to actually see the movie before you can rate it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that I mean, I've seen
we got a lot of Nazis online. I don't know if most of that's out of toxicity of music or gaming culture, but
I don't know.
I mean, you commented already on one of your shorts, but it's just one of those where eventually you have to just do an extra reminder for people, just shut it out. There's this block button on social media. Just move the hell on. There's always going to be a douchebag. There's always going to be someone.
For me also, when they're doing promotion for a film, if they talk more about how a movie was made, or on set, or
biggest giveaway,
or how much it cost, or how intense the shooting schedule was and stuff like that, that to me is 9 times out of 10 a dead giveaway for like,
they didn't enjoy making it, so
this is a shit movie. They're not proud of it. They're not proud of it, but they've got to talk about something. So let's talk about the budget, and let's talk about,
which often offers them up to more ridicule. I hate how people act like, oh, where'd all that money go to? It's like, you know where it went to. It went to the names, and then it went to the effects. Then
that's exactly it. You know, a lot of times I'm just like, you know, and another pet peeve of mine is when I'm watching a movie and I can tell they spent more time thinking about the cinematography and how they were going to shoot it than they did.
Love how this man thinks, guys.
Than they did working on the actual script, because you know, okay, I loved Hotel Budapest. I loved that movie. I think it's a great movie. And then he comes out with The French Dispatch. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I turned it off after 45 minutes because I was just done. I had had enough of it. And to me, that was a perfect example where there was so much focus put on, in my opinion, how it was going to look and how it was going to be shot versus the actual storyline.
Exactly.
And, you know, and it's just like, you know,
anyone who's saying any filmmaker is consistent is like, no, there's going to be Kubrick films you don't care for. There's going to be.
Oh my God. Kubrick is the perfect example. And, you know, I can be blasphemous about this, but I remember when I think it was about 14 when I saw 2001. Okay. I went to the theater, watched it.
Oh, really?
I came out. I'm old. I'll be 60 next year. Aren't we all? So I saw it, came out, and I was like, what the fuck was that? So then I watched it when I was in my 20s. I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, seriously. Gorgeous looking film, you know, like this, you know, there's things in it that was just so far ahead of its time, but it's a shit film. On the other hand, Clockwork Orange is one of my favorite films. I think.
Well, it is funny how, I mean, we were talking about the same formulas. It's funny how some of them we then have to go in and unfortunately even revisit the movie we don't like, and then we have to basically outline, see, this introduces the story better, this framing, and then maybe the music stood out better. And I mean, you mentioned Dark City. I made the mistake of seeing one of those cuts that had the narration that was put in. I think, like Blade Runner, there's a version that doesn't have as much narration.
Did the original have Dark City have narration in it?
I think the theatrical did. I think.
Because I watch it, because again,
the director's cut, they took it out because that was the studio cut.
Yeah, the director's cut is really great because it did not have any VO.
So there you go. I need to watch that version because that's a better version. But like you say, it's just so many people will. I'm glad you brought up 2001 versus Clockwork Orange because it is interesting what sci-fi. It's another tricky thing. I see a lot of people who they want the fantasy element that they get from Willow or Star Wars, and it's like, well, that's not hard sci-fi. And then when they go into sci-fi, they want, again, a Total Recall or Blade Runner type movie, and it's like, well, it doesn't have to be gritty or R-rated. And there's plenty of movies that I think significantly,
you know, because again, okay, here's the other thing too. Like, okay, you take something like 2001, and then people say, well, you have to read the book and then you'll get it. I shouldn't have to read the fucking book. That's why I'm watching a movie.
Yeah.
If I wanted to read the book, I'd go read the fucking book.
I mean, this is where we are kind of with the last two Avengers. Avengers 3 is kind of a more making a tribute to 90s movies. Part 4 is kind of more a comic book fan movie. And it's like, well, so unfortunately, you're going to get more of an impact if you've seen the other movies or if you've seen the comics. And the best sequels, the best movies are the ones where I don't have to see a single, page or
see it. No,
plot
exactly.
description.
And, and so that's, or if people have to write a dissertation to explain a movie, it's a bad movie. I don't want to go and read a fucking 10-page dissertation on why a movie is good. If a movie is good, people should be able to like it for a variety of
if it's like a Tarkovsky kind of movie where you don't understand it all, but you're very fascinated by it, that's the difference between that and maybe something like, I mean, I'm kind of this way with Nolan. I find plot holes in Inception, but I overall like the whole thing, even though
for me personally, I think Inception was one of his last in my opinion,
I'm the same way. Yeah,
really good movies.
because I examined Tenet and I'm like, it doesn't really mean anything the more I think about it, and I'm not sure I enjoyed it.
Well, and he abandoned some of his own
his rules,
his own rules that he sets up early on in the movie. He suddenly abandons them halfway through the film, which I find really annoying.
Yeah.
And another big pet peeve of mine.
It's not him evolving; it's him kind of just being random.
Yeah, and what was the other one? The one about the invasion. Dunkirk.
Are you talking? Oh yeah, Dunkirk. Yeah, the real word.
My biggest complaint with Dunkirk. Now, I grew up in Europe, so I knew all about Dunkirk. I knew about what it entailed. Now, if somebody who never knew anything about Dunkirk watched that movie, you would have the idea that this was a handful of boats that went over there to rescue these guys off of the beach.
Mm-hmm.
It was a massive flotilla of boats that went over. It was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fishing boats and trawlers and stuff like that went over and rescued thousands of these guys. Not a couple of hundred that were standing around on the beach hanging out, but thousands of these guys that were stuck on the beach. You don't get that from the movie.
No.
You never know that was that massive of an undertaking.
I know it's cliche, but yeah, watch any other war movie and you'll get a sense. If you have to, I'm the same way with some of these period piece movies. Sometimes, unfortunately, you got to read extra history book because some of them, as well acted and well crafted as they are, is like, yeah, unless you know about this or that, and it's common knowledge.
The funny thing is, then when they came out with Darkest Hour about Churchill and that whole period, they actually did a better representation of Dunkirk than he did in the entire fucking movie. It's like I don't understand why he did it that way, because
it's really hard to do, because then they kind of had this, I think, with Passive Glory and other movies. Some movies want to show you the bloodlust crowd who are expecting firefights, and then there's others who want to just get a sense and a feel of the recreation.
If he would have at least shown this huge flotilla of boats leaving England to go pick these guys up, then you'd have a sense of the true size,
or just at least one or two extra scenes, maybe just one extra narration. But
what did you see? You saw like 2 or 3 fucking boats.
I felt like he was too busy trying to recreate Letters from Iwo Jima or Saving Private Ryan.
Exactly.
It's like, if I want to see that, I'll just see it again.
I'll go see that. But if you're going to call a movie Dunkirk, then help people understand what that operation really was. And it really fell short for me in that.
War movies are at their best, as much like any good Vice Squad show or gangsters coming together in a private, meeting room talking about their next turf war. It's so great when you see a war movie and they show you the strategy and you give you an idea. We Were Soldiers did that.
I actually think Band of Brothers was really great.
Band of Brothers would do that. They would get them together and they're writing it literally on their gun or a piece of paper. Yeah.
Another good series that's out right now actually is Rogue Heroes. It's about the creation. Oh my God! It's about the creation of the SAS in World War II.
Oh yes. I've been meaning to see that. Jack O'Connell, love that man.
We actually watched the documentary of the same name, where they actually have interviews with the original guys.
Oh, did they really?
And literally, we watched the documentary, and then we're watching the series more, because we'd watched the first episode of the series. And as we're watching the series, it's held so true to form of actually what happened. It's frightening. Like everything they described in the documentary, they actually show you in the series. It's not, of course it's dramatized a little more, but really all these events actually happened as
that was a good point too. I was on the lovely Not a Bomb podcast, and we were talking about how some of the science in that stupid movie Moonfall is real, but you don't know it because you're so caught up in all the other just not even trying to suspend disbelief, just mindless crap. So it is interesting how like you say, the right craftsman, the right person who can outline it instead of just go for a money shot equivalent, is to actually
exactly it. Yeah.
To actually film it, and there are those who want to film it like a Super Bowl ad, and that's fine. Do what you've been hired to do. But there's others, it's like, if they've given you all this freedom and millions, you got no excuse to not plan.
No, I agree. And that's the thing that I find disappointing is just like, and again, back to Fury Road, you can say, well, the way it was shot and stuff like that was like, when you have a budget like that, first off, it better fucking look good.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you still couldn't have a plot. I mean, that's just the bare fucking minimum.
And or at least just something to like us.
Yeah.
Like, I got into this argument with 71 Into the Fire. I did not care for how it was filmed and just very shaky and
Which
typical.
one was this?
71 Into the Fire. It was about
I haven't seen that.
IRA riots and everything.
Okay.
And, I loved Jack O'Connell on, the guy you just brought up from Rogue Heroes,
right,
from Unbroken. And me and my sister were like, we already don't care about these Patriot Games type villains. And I got into an argument with one person who was like, it's not a period piece drama. I'm like, then why did they show an opening of London in, say, 1971? I mean, it's in the title. You can't tell me it's not a period.
It is a period piece. That's
or historical fiction, something. It's one of those things. It is not a mindless action movie like you guys are making it out to be.
Exactly. There's going to be some basis, in fact, in that film.
How can it not
be?
It
about? What's 71? What's it about?
It was basically about British Ireland, just troubles with just various military policemen having to stop IRA attacks. And I applauded for the premise. The premise was what got me. I saw some people saying it's a realistic Die Hard type, Dog Day Afternoon type movie, and we were just very confused by the plot, and again, just so much shakiness. And this is where I'm noticing people vary on too. Just like with car chases, some car chases kind of put you to sleep, and some, again, kind of like Terminator and Die Hard, make you say, I want to follow these guys around because it's moving the story forward. And I will applaud Mad Max for doing that for the most part. I didn't get that necessarily with Fury Road. It could have been just one car chase, and that would have been good. But it's funny how, where do you range on car chases? Because it seems like they can be like French Connection. Other times it's just like Bullet, where that's literally the only thing anyone remembers.
Right, exactly.
Good or bad.
Well, I think the famous one is the original Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah, that's literally the whole point.
The entire second half of the movie.
A Jackie Chan movie. It's all about the stunts.
But this is the thing, that going into it, I think car chases, they're very hard to do, and they're very hard to choreograph. And, if it serves the movie, then you have, like you said, the French Connection. It's funny. I was watching a documentary about the director. And believe it or not, that entire car chase was not permitted and completely shot guerrilla style.
I do recall that. There was some interview, I think, on Speed Channel that was
Friedkin himself actually operated the camera because he wasn't going to put his DP in that situation. He said, "No, I'm going to do this."
Yeah, and those are the kind of people I like. The ones who take responsibility for something that's a gray area. It's like, I have to break the law to get this good shot.
They literally broke the law. They were that was not, like, streets were not blocked off. What you saw is what went on. And so
the reactions are authentic. Get out of the way.
That's exactly it.
Honk, honk, honk.
That's exactly it. So that's a pretty.
And again, we care about the outcome. We know at the end of this car chase, he will or won't.
That's exactly it. It served a purpose. And whenever a car chase doesn't have a purpose, that's when you have
you look at Lethal Weapon 1, the final car chase gets to the end of the movie. You look at Lethal Weapon 4, there's like 3 extra car chases, and you're just like,
who cares?
That's a sequel I can only watch in segments. It's just too much. It's steroids. Once you're over the age of 14, it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't, and that's the thing, right? It's like it becomes. It just becomes wallpaper, really. It's like when you have too much music in a film or a series.
The kind of wallpaper you want to tape something over.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that then when you need the music to do something, it means nothing. And so it's kind of the same. I think it's kind of this, for me, it's the same thing with action films, is like, if you have nonstop action the whole time,
too much of a good thing.
It's just too much. You know, you need your hills and valleys to give the audience time to recover from. But that's, I think, what makes a good action film. They understand that, you know, you look at the first John Wick, which again, I think that's an action film.
John Wick is a good example. That, Equalizer, and Taken. You're seeing so much of stuff that people would complain about in, like, maybe a Bruce Lee or James Bond or even a Bourne Identity movie, and somehow it works more to the masses there, and no one can seem to explain it unless you actually sit down with fans of the genre. It's interesting how some people can totally explain to you, I love it, I don't even like Keanu Reeves, and there's others like, oh, I like Keanu, but I really dig the crime underworld and everything. And then there's others who, I don't get it. Maybe I just am cynical and lost interest in the genre. It's a great predicament.
I love a good action film. Unfortunately, I think when they turn, you know, this is okay. Like, you take John Wick, the first one is great. Second one's okay.
Yeah,
I just think they're getting worse and worse, because how far can you take that same premise?
I really only dug the plot twist in part 3, but again, it's.
I mean, the thing that made the first one so great was that he did all that because they killed his fucking dog.
It was done, and,
you know,
and we could kind of get an idea of where he goes in the storyline off screen in the last minute. But yeah, there's some people who I know who like the sequels more and more, and I'm like, no, I like to keep it simple. I really do.
Yeah, the first one was really, really good. You know, the way that they show you who he really is as a person, you know, once
you actually see the wife die, and then you're just like, you see him destroyed as a man while he's burying his dog.
You care about him. Yeah. You care about him. You know, you understand his pain. First, he loses his wife, and like he says, the last thing she left for him, they fucking kill. And it's a dog. And I tell you, you kill a dog on screen, you're fucking dead. You know,
yeah. It's the easiest trigger. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I also mix my ends. And last season, there was a scene where
I saw that was on your resume. How was that?
It's fun, actually. The showrunner, the new showrunner, and the crew on that, and the actors are so nice. There's actually a perfect example of when the new showrunner took over. He is very much one of those inclusive people of making sure everybody feels involved, and it shows.
Oh, that's cool.
Shows on screen. Yeah. But there was a scene where he's talking to his girlfriend, someone who he wants to be his girlfriend, and she works at a dog rescue place, and they're having this conversation about something, and at the same time, she's euthanizing a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I told the showrunner afterwards, like, you can't kill any more dogs. You just can't do that. I don't care how many people you kill. No more dog killing.
Yeah, Yellowstone did that in one episode. And I was like, thank God that was one brief 5-second subplot.
But that's what made you, in my opinion, really feel about why he reacted the way he did.
It wasn't a joke, but they were in on it, so to speak. They knew what they were doing, unlike other movies where you feel like that was pretty insecure or that was an afterthought. There's been plenty of infamous moments on TV where it's like they had it planned out, but however it was done, it felt like an afterthought. And it's like, well, you can tell me all day this was planned and this and that. I felt like that person getting assaulted or killed was insensitive and just gratuitous.
Exactly.
Sometimes maybe the director of the episode wasn't thinking. Maybe it was a bunch of reshoots and it felt robotic. I don't know.
No, but I think that's the thing too with good action films. All the action has to serve a purpose, and I think in some action films, it's as bad as gratuitous sex. If there's no reason if it's just to see some girl naked, then what's the point?
The same thing with a movie. Like, if you're a trashy B picture, then you already know that you're pretty lowbrow. That makes sense. But yeah, if you're being bigger and better, then there's really no excuse.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so again, back to Fury Road. I honestly can't. I can't remember any of the real. And I got to be honest, I can't remember any of the real action scenes. They made no impact on me whatsoever. Whereas when I think back on John Wick, like pretty much every fucking action scene in that movie, I can say John Wick right now, and there's a myriad of scenes in that movie that pop right into my head that happen.
Right. And you remember the villain and you love their comeuppance, or maybe when the hero doesn't defeat them. You know, it is unfortunately, you know, even the franchises we praised, you know, have done it bad. Like I don't remember anyone in the Crystal Skull Indiana Jones. I don't.
Oh my God. Well, let's be honest though, that is the absolute worst Indiana Jones movie. Like
totally. I remember a scene in it, the fridge, but it's for the wrong reasons, you know?
When they came out with the UFO, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I gotta say, I've seen the trailer for the new one, and I have to honestly say, it actually looks fucking amazing.
I've been stoked, but see, for a guy who doesn't watch trailers, I look at the talent involved, and then I look at the outline, and I'm like, I'll take a chance on you. And that was the case.
I saw the trailer. I'm like, oh God, I got to see this. And I watched it. I'm like, that looks like it's going to be really good.
Then I'm excited for it even more. Then you know,
the original vibe is there. There's I look at I think of the trailer and I'm like, it really makes me want to see it. You know, as opposed to other trailers that I've seen that actually turn me off. I don't want to see them at all. You know?
Comedies are the worst. They'll play, you know, Everybody Dance Now or some other 90s hit while there's a bunch of unrelated physical gags that are poorly sped up. So you don't know if it's good or not. And you don't even know if that's only in the trailer or just, you know, in the movie itself. And like you say, you know, it's easy to nitpick because trailers, you know, they're not in studio anymore. So it's, I know, you know, but for those that don't know.
But it's like,
have faith in your word.
It's like, it's not even about nitpicking. It's just like, sometimes I'll see them and I'm just like, who
wants to see this? Why is everyone excited?
How did it even get greenlit? And I have that even with movies I'll watch, and I'll be watching this movie and go, who the hell greenlit this? They actually they read the script and they actually made it. And
someone's on record as saying, I'm making a masterpiece. So you're like, what?
And it's like, wow. It's like, you know, sometimes it does make me wonder. It's like, no wonder to an extent that the movie industry is in the problems it's in sometimes, because it really does make me wonder who are making these decisions to greenlight certain things.
No wonder some people stop going to the movies altogether. They just would rather watch a book or a movie that they've grown up loving.
And I know Warner Brothers, since they got taken over by Discovery, has gotten a lot of flack for shelving movies. But I understand. I do understand, because you shoot like the Batgirl movie, I guess, or Batwoman, whatever the fuck it's called. Anyway, do you know how bad the screening must have been for them to shelve it?
There must have been a lot of people walking out, but see,
you know,
then I blame maybe the editing team, because I know in the past they hired.
But here's the thing: a cast can't make up for a shitty script.
No, I get that. I'm just more mad that someone didn't have it to show on their demo reel or what have you, if it was good.
Well, I mean, the problem there, of course, is the fact that then they can't write it off. You know, this is the thing. It's that everybody got paid, so they can't complain about that. But I do understand, because, you know, if the movie costs $80 million, they're probably going to spend that again on promotion just to sell it.
Maybe. So I was more mad that they greenlit a Flash sequel when that already is kind of like Morbius, where people hate the main star, people already aren't looking forward to it, and they already greenlit it before it comes out.
Now, the flip side of that is that, okay, if they're going to if they're already greenlighting a second Flash, then the first one has got to be pretty fucking amazing. I mean, think about that.
There might be. It might even be a Suicide Squad where now they're like, okay, makeover. We're remodeling.
Well, maybe if they do a
just
second
like the Hulk.
maybe they will replace the Flash in the second one. But
they could even be like Marvel.
You really have to think if the current Flash film that's going to be released is going to be released, then considering that they shelved Batgirl because of lackluster response from, it's got to be. I think it's got to be pretty fucking good. Regardless, you know what I mean? It's like, because if they're willing to shelve movies,
I just don't in general trust someone whose only experience is making reality TV. Really, that's right.
Well, I'm not disagreeing, but I'm not disagreeing with you there. But knowing how these studios work, they would have. There
must have been a better, like you say, audience reception.
Well, that's the thing. Their focus groups were clearly far more positive than they were for Batgirl.
And I just listened to totally, and I just got done listening
because clearly they have no problem shelving a fucking movie that's finished. That's pretty obvious.
Something's going on, yeah.
So something is going on. So either I can only think that, and I'm not really excited about seeing it. Whatever, it's just enough because I'm actually completely fucking over superhero movies. I don't care I don't care who's making them. I'm just
franchise fatigue was something Forbes.
Oh my god, yeah.
And that's what we're experiencing.
Funny thing is, in my opinion, the only good superhero shows on right now are The Boys and Peacemaker.
Oh yeah, because that's like Deadpool. That's like the anti. Yeah,
exactly right.
We'll return after these messages.
Hello and welcome to Culture Shocked, the pop culture podcast brought to you by four aging millennials and our outdated opinions. Join us every Tuesday as we discuss movies, TV, games, and even music, new and old.
Dude, what do you think you're doing?
Are you seriously trying to record a promo without us right now?
Well, yeah.
Dude, you can't just do the promo by yourself. Who's gonna listen to that?
Yeah, and you probably haven't even told them that we're a pop culture podcast where we always agree on everything. For instance, the Sam Raimi trilogy, easily being the best of the Spider-Man movies.
No. But I think we can all agree that Jaws is a classical masterpiece.
Nope, don't like that. But we do all agree that the sequel trilogy of Star Wars is the best in the Skywalker saga, right, guys?
That comment is so ridiculous. I don't even know where to begin.
Anyways, that'll do it from all of us here at Culture Shock. Thanks for listening.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
We let things pile up in the DVR, we add them to our queues, we wait for the DVDs and Blu-rays. We time shift. The Time Shifters Podcast. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, superheroes, comedy, action, film, television, maybe some not-so-current events. Find us on iTunes or at timeshifterspodcast.com.
Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the US, we are in the UK, we are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.
But the current, and I mean, again, I loved the first Captain America. I loved, Iron Man. I think they're great movies, but I'm so fucking over them.
Right. We don't need a gazillion.
So
nothing needs more than 7. Police Academy stopped after a while.
Yeah. I will say this last Batman movie is really good. That was really well done.
Couldn't get into it. But maybe it's because I've seen Batman too much of it. I don't.
Well, I think that what was good about it is the grittiness and moving away from the.
That I will applaud it. I just had more issues with just all the casting and 3-hour runtime.
I do think the 3-hour runtime, they've got to get away from that. They've got to fucking stop doing that bullshit.
If you can't tell it and stop.
I mean, 2 hours max.
And have it be its own thing. It doesn't need a sequel.
I know
it takes free books,
and that's my biggest complaint too with all this stuff. It's like, wow.
Imagine if the first Lord of the Rings, if New Line Cinema had said, you know what, we don't like this test audience, and Fellowship just ends there. That movie is garbage if it ends just like that with Gandalf, everyone in Boromir dying. Oh my god, you'd be pissed. You'd be like, I got a movie that starts off good and then goes downhill.
Exactly. So again, back to Batgirl, how did it get greenlit if the script was that bad?
It really does make you wonder. And I really don't feel like with all the rewriters they hire, I really don't think they do enough table reads. They're so worried about.
That's the other thing. If
the actors are investor based, they're not based on where they can do the role.
Well, there's that, absolutely, but that's my question about the whole rewrite thing. It's like, then why did you greenlight the script in the first place?
It's just because
it's that bad that it needs rewrites.
And they own DC, so it doesn't. It's not a rights issue.
I mean, I can see bringing somebody in to do some little touch ups, but if you're doing major rewrites, then why do you greenlight the original script? I don't understand that. Absolutely. I mean, I thought like Birds of Prey is unwatchable. It's so awful.
That was basically the Warriors, but with Harley Quinn, and
my God.
I felt like a lot of the lines were improvised on.
Maybe
I had fun, but I can't blame you. It's not a movie I'd watch again. It was one of those one time kind of dumb, kind of
like how did that script get greenlit? I don't understand.
Even with the casting, like make sure the casting's good, so we don't have to do a Terrence Howard is now played by Don Cheadle, or Ed Norton becomes Mark Ruffalo.
I mean, look at the first Suicide Squad. It's just like there were characters appearing in that movie out of nowhere.
They hired the Honest Trailers team to re-edit it, which is already a big mistake. Those guys are doing 5-minute viral videos. Every week.
Exactly. I was watching the first Suicide. At least the second one is fun. It's entertaining. The first one was like, where did that guy come from?
There's parts I like and don't like about each one. I mean, part 2 is kind of more of a comedy, and part 1
totally.
To get to the good stuff, you got to suffer for the Joker crap. And
exactly. I thought the Joker in the first one was just awful,
and it went on just too long. So it's just like
totally.
And I know there's a different cut of it out there, but that's just it. We'll never see that cut.
Yeah. So, it's weird that certain movies get greenlit. And again, I don't understand how they could greenlit a movie that's going to cost $80 million and then shelve it. Why did you shoot it in the front? But on the flip side, I will say this: maybe the new management came in and wasn't looking at, but we need to do it because this person is, was working on it. Maybe they just literally looked at it and went, yeah, but it's a bad movie. We're not going to spend another $80 million promoting it. So again, I think we get back to the same point of sometimes it's people look too hard at who wrote it and who directed it versus is this any good?
Yeah, they don't know whether the premise was already not going to work or how the production itself was screwed up. There wasn't enough time to flesh it out. And a good podcast, if you haven't listened to, have you listened to the Turner Classic Movies, The Plot Thickens?
No.
Really delightful. Again, it's TCM, so they bring some great experts on, but it's, they pick a different storyline, each 10 episode podcast season. And season 2 was a real highlight because they examined what went wrong behind the scenes on Bonfire of the Vanities. It was really neat to just see how, the actors, who were explained as being, critiqued as being miscast, wanted to do it because it was a different role. They were hot properties back then. The director thought, hey, this is my shot to be more mainstream. And again, the studio, it tested well, and they never liked typically most stuff that's screened for them, but they found it impossible to market. And it was one of those, why didn't you guys think about that before you did? And same deal. Whoever greenlit it had already left and taken over, Sony. Right. He left Warner Brothers for Sony, and it's like, well, the guy who started this show didn't go down with the ship. So
right. Yeah. That's kind of in the music industry, that would happen all the time, where a band would get signed by an A&R guy.
Mm-hmm. The manager.
Or between the time that they got signed to the time the record got released, that A&R guy is now fired. They brought somebody new in.
The guitarist quits, breaks his leg. Yeah.
So they bring this new A&R guy in. It's not his band. He doesn't give a shit. So the record goes nowhere because the A&R guy is going to push the bands that he wants to push.
The new in charge of That's programming. Right. They don't want anything to do with the last version. Yeah.
That's exactly it. And it happens, all the time in these big companies. And I think that there's films that fall by the wayside because of that. And exactly. So it sounds like Bonfire of the Vanities was.
They said, dead on arrival.
There's a great TV show. I forget the name of it. And they talk about all these great hit movies that were made that almost didn't get made because.
Oh, yeah. Best unproduced scripts, I think. Something like that. Best movies never made.
No, it's movies that did end up getting made in spite of the studio.
Oh, how did this get made?
Well, we're talking like movies like fucking Ghostbusters, Home Alone, stuff like that.
So it's not how this get made.
I think it was Home Alone was the one where.
Oh, the movies that make us. Yes.
Yes, the movies that make us. That's Netflix. It.
Yes.
And it's great. And you see these things and these decisions that these people at movie studios have made. Like Home Alone was supposed to be I think it was supposed to, it was supposed to be at another studio.
Right.
And they got so fucking, I guess nervous or whatever. They were in the middle of starting to shoot, literally.
So much cleanup that had to happen.
And they wanted to come in and shut the production down.
Mm-hmm.
But a copy of, there were some shenanigans that went on so that when they tried to shut the movie down, they were able to take it over to Fox and fire the producer that was on the film.
Nice.
And of course it went on to be this huge fucking hit.
Oh, totally.
A lot, and so many of those huge hit movies were made in spite of the studio's involvement.
Right. And you can't replicate it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think the problem with my whole thing with, I think execs both in TV and film is that their job is to sell the movie. And I was at a.
That's why it often won't line up with what the director is saying.
Well, I was at an industry thing and they were talking about, I forget what show it was, but anyway, it was I think it was the History Channel. And they had the head of the network there, and somebody asked the question, how involved are you once you've greenlit a series? He says, as far as input and stuff like that, he says, we're not at all. So we hire the people that we hire, we sign the projects that we sign because we trust in them. Our job is to sell it. We do not get involved with the actual production side of it, which I think is great. It's like that's the whole thing.
It's a total rarity too. There's always
it is a rarity, and that's the problem. I think, when executives want to be creatives, my whole thing is like, well, then you go direct and write your own thing. I think a perfect example where that whole thing went completely sideways was at Paramount when this exec, whose 5-year-old son came up with an idea for a TV show called Monster Trucks. I'm sure you've heard the story.
Nice.
Well, that movie was actually made. It was about monsters that live inside cars and trucks.
Oh, jeez.
And they spent a shit pile of money, and it was a huge flop, like massive flop. They lost so much money on that movie. And of course, as a result, that executive no longer works for Paramount anymore.
I think I did see that. It was on Epic's channel, and I was like, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah, it was literally the idea of his 5-year-old son, and he actually ran with it, and he got it greenlit. And it was just like, when you read the premise, you're like, "What the fuck is this?" But they spent all this money. It's like it's astounding that they can
justify this and that.
It's insane. Like, it really is. You know, it's mind-boggling. So
yeah, and it goes on and on and on.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my rant for the day.
I feel you.
Yeah.
It's
a
big eye opener in a way.
Yeah.
It's like, I try to look at everything, as an eBay bid. How much are you willing to spend? How much time are we willing to spend on it? Just like getting into a good show.
I do wonder how long it'll take for the industry to move into a situation where a movie doesn't have to cost $150 million to make.
It seems unheard of. It seems like they can never justify it. It's just they're willing to spend X amount of millions.
It's bizarre. I mean, it always seems that no matter what, a movie for a major network, for major studios, have to cost this obscene amount of money. And I think they can do them elsewhere for a lot less. Why does? I mean, I think a perfect example is the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is great. That's the original the original foreign version is so much better than the US version. Yet
many of them.
Whereas the original version, I think the budget for it was $10 million. But the David Fincher version was like $100 million.
Oh yeah.
Same movie. What the fuck? Why does it's a walk and talk. It's basically
half the time it seems like everyone's doing what they're supposed to, and you don't know how much of it is the director really doesn't want to talk to anyone. And if all he had to literally say to the guy sent the messenger was, "Yeah, it's coming along great. There will not be a problem." If all you literally have to say is yes, it's hardly what I would call being a kiss ass. Just
but I
don't want them to go away. Show them.
I don't understand why the same movie can go from a $10 million budget in the foreign market to costing $100 million to make.
I don't know if they're just not converting it the right way. Sometimes when I listen in on those stuff that would get leaked, like from Sony, is like, wow, that's what a studio exec actually said. What a pig,
right? Yeah,
actually saying that, and everyone else is like, well, they're not Weinstein, but they're still a pig. And it's like, well,
right, yeah,
you're working with them.
It's bizarre. So I do wonder if it'll get to the point where, first off, how really important is star power? If you're having to spend that much more money to get the movie to break even, how much is the star power? Because, I think a perfect example for me is, okay, you take a movie like Parasite. Now, let's be honest. The average American public has no fucking clue who the actors in that movie are. They don't know anything about the director. Like, nothing. But somehow that became a Oscar-winning film. So why does a foreign movie with actors and a director behind it, that the majority of the American public have no idea who the fuck they are, how come that can become an Oscar film? But if you make a movie like that over here, with unknown actors and an unknown director, suddenly it's like not a viable fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, you know, perfect. And another perfect example is back in the day was The Full Monty. None of the actors in that movie were known here at all.
No.
Huge hit movie.
No one knew if it was going to be good, and I think it was made just on the cheap.
It was like, I think it had like a $2 million budget. Huge hit though, you know. But if you try and do something like that here, if you, as a filmmaker, if you're trying to make a low budget film, well, who's your star? Well, nobody. I mean, did anybody know really who any of the actors in Star Wars was other than fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Exactly.
No.
And again, he didn't have any faith in that. And if something like that had been leaked, people, Star Wars would have not been a hit. It would have been, oh, we got these tapes of Alec Guinness bitching on set. Oh,
exactly, right? So why is it so? Why is it not viable to make
that word,
good indie films here? Unless you can say, well, at least I've got a B star in it. It's like it's so odd. It's like nobody's interested almost in taking a risk on that. Whereas
and the people who want something new ultimately cater to, but do audiences want to see it? Probably not. So
yeah, exactly.
I guess we're done.
So it's interesting that foreign films can do it, but homegrown North American English speaking talent, we can't. There's that barrier of,
and then we're worried about what it will make in China, even though we're not on good terms with them right now. And so it's like you got to figure out your own market. But I think you could describe this as just like anything, just with politics and society. This is a systematic problem.
Yeah, it is.
And unfortunately, they don't want to solve it right now until you find the one who ultimately wants to try a different way of making money and offers that idea.
I honestly think that the audience is getting to the point where they don't really care about, to an extent, who's the star of the movie. I mean, I think there's I don't think, I think that's why I like a lot of British movies as well, because when I'm watching a British movie, I'm not seeing, oh, that's Brad Pitt playing this person. You know what I mean? It's like an actor that is really talented, that
they earned this role. I see why they were right for it. Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with a lot of North American films, is that they, it's hard to suspend, belief when the lead actor is not a bum. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're slogging it, or they look unhappy. And it's even more subjective when it's one of their best roles, and they're so close to it, they don't want to talk about it.
Exactly. I think for certain types of films, I think a star actually detracts from the overall story and feeling of the film, because it's because, it's another Tom Cruise movie. Oh, it's another, I mean, I'm so sick of Margot Robbie at this point. It's like, I'm not kidding. It's like,
no, I get it. I'm kind of that way with Oscar Isaac and Jamie Foxx, because they're terrible at picking something worthy of their talent. I'm just like, Idris Elba. For the first time I want to actually see a movie he's in, that it's the Luther movie. Great show.
Same
Why
here.
can't he get a good project that's worthy of that great show?
You know what? I was saying that to my wife the other day. It's like, why has Idris Elba not been in a great movie yet? I don't understand it. He is
like one or two, but it's not enough for it.
Yeah, because we're the same thing. The first time we saw him was when we were watching Luther, and it's like, wow, this guy's really fucking good. And
some TV stars, they can't replicate it, but people are forgetting when that whole transition was impossible. Now it's second nature. People get paid $400 worth of peanuts, and the star gets $30 million an episode.
Why has he been? He needs a new agent, because he has been unable to get the roles that he should be in. It's like it's astounding to me.
And people often think, I'm glad we had this chat, about a franchise. It's the same thing with actors. Well, people will say, "Oh, you don't like them?" I'm like, I like them. I hate their fucking resume.
Yeah.
I hate their resume. It's atrocious. I would not want it.
Yeah.
They don't want it. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes they'll say up front. I mean, I think Hugh Jackman was like in a Howard Stern interview, and he's like, I went the Michael Caine route. Just take the first offer and do your best. But then there's others who's like, oh, but you can do so much better.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing. It's like, I think that, because I remember the interview with Michael Caine where they asked him, he said, you did these great movies and then you were in this one and then you were in that one. And they're so bad.
So inconsistent. Yeah.
Well, and he literally said, he's like, well, I did that movie so I could buy my mom a new house. Right. I did that movie so I could buy myself a new house. He said, so some of these movies I did because I'm an actor. It's what I do. People pay me and I do. And he says, now that I'm older, I'm a lot pickier. He said, but when I was younger, I was doing movies because I'm an actor. That's what I totally get that. I really do. If somebody, I was mixing this movie that has Mel Gibson in it. Now, if you wonder why you'll see guys like Mel Gibson in these like B-type movies, like that are, they're whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he gets, how much did he say? It's like $10 million to show up to set for a week.
Yeah.
Now,
he's on the same short list as Morgan Freeman, De Niro,
that's exactly,
and Bruce Willis. And that same production company was using them before they got shut down.
Exactly. So you tell me, show me anybody who's going to turn down a $10 million paycheck for a week.
Yeah.
So I get it.
You gotta have already retired if you're gonna say no.
Exactly. But then on the flip side, you really need to counter that with doing some really quality, good movies as well. Mm-hmm. And, that's how you kind of have to balance that. I totally get it. I understand that people, remember back in the day perfect example is David Bowie when he did that album, Let's Dance. Nile Rodgers told me, he said, let me do my thing and you will become a household name. You will be a superstar. And he let him do it. And then after that, he was able to go off and do the shit he wanted to do. He never had to have to worry about money again. And that's why he went into Tin Machine and all this weird, totally not pop music. And I remember reading somewhere that Let's Dance is his personal least favorite record. But that's what made him the superstar that he is. But he was smart because then he went off and did the stuff he wanted to do. And so that's the thing I think I have with, again, someone like Margot Robbie, it's just like she's in everything now, and it's just like it's almost at a,
The Rock's kind of as bad, and Kevin Hart.
Oh my god! And I'm happy for her. Don't get me wrong. Fuck, it's awesome that she's getting all these roles, right. But they're kind of all the same.
And that's just it. With any actor, they typecast them immediately to where it's just like, I know more about what they're doing next rather than keeping up what's currently now.
Exactly.
Too many of them, I have to wait a decade for them to get good, really.
Yeah, exactly. It
used to be, I don't know if it's just we know more about how this machine is oiled or what, but yeah, there's not as much suspense, like you say. There's no, when Knives came out, no one knew it was going to be a hit. It was a natural, organic hit. And then now they're replicating it. And I saw a few people give it's okay, or I like it, just not as much as the first. And it's just like, because it was so organic, it's hard to get that genie in a bottle again.
It is hard, but that's the problem with the sequels and stuff like that. It's like it's that magic is a one-time thing, and that's the thing. And so go and create another script that has that magic, but not the same premise. I think that's the problem. It's like you can only do so much with an original idea, because after that it's not original anymore. It's
Totally.
So,
we're kind of just scratching our heads saying, what could we do different? And I think that's just it. I think a lot of the people who want to do something different, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, it is. And it's because everybody's so focused on doing remakes and all this, sequels, and it's so, it's kind of like a desert wasteland when it comes to original ideas at this point. Everybody's just doing remakes and like even the big filmmakers. It's like, I mean, what's his name that did even the Blade Runner?
Yeah, Ridley Scott, same kind of thing.
Ridley Scott, Villeneuve. It's like, I mean, his next movie is supposed to be a remake of something. What's his name there?
It seems like that's his compromise. He'll make it his way, but he's still, it has to be a pre-established thing for it.
It's like, I would hate to be just doing remakes as a filmmaker,
or a different adaptation of something that, yeah. And it's tricky.
I think that, I think you can take existing ideas and do something original with them.
You totally can.
For example, what's Shadow of the Vampire?
Right.
The Willem Dafoe as the actor that is actually
that was about the making of Nosferatu. That was different between let's remake Nosferatu.
Exactly, that's the thing. Now, what's his name, from what I understand, is doing a remake of the original Nosferatu, which is funny because I'm actually going to be doing a feature next year that's also a Nosferatu film, but it takes place actually at the
I think it just depends on how close you are to it. Like, I'm okay if they do, say, a different version of, say, the Musketeers or I don't know. Like I said.
But again, it's like the cover. It's like, how do you make it your own?
Right. How do you make it stand out?
I think a perfect example really to that is when I heard that what's his name was going to be Cameron was going to be doing a Titanic movie.
Back in the day,
back in the day, and it's just like, well, that's been done to death. But wow, did he put a different spin on it? Because it wasn't about the actual Titanic sinking. That's what was, in my opinion, actually brilliant about that movie.
Mm-hmm.
The actual sinking of the Titanic was completely secondary to that movie, and that's what I think a good remake is. It's like taking what everybody knows about a certain film, but doing something really original with it. And I think that that's the trick.
Exactly.
I
get it. It's hard to stand out, but it is, like you say, is like they can go about it so much differently, or at least, bother to illustrate what they're going to do different.
Yeah. It's but I think right now it's like there's so much unoriginality right now in films, especially in the big studio films. It's like they literally are either only interested in either the cartoon and superhero movies, or it's got to be a remake of something. Right. I think it's and it is unfortunate. It's not very interesting, and and again, back to Fury Road, I think that that's what Fury Road was. It was like you were saying, it was like let's capitalize on this nostalgia. The only problem is I just don't think that they started off with a good script first. I think from an interview I was reading the other day is like Miller had a room that he had spent the last 10 years working on the what do they call it, the not the storyline, but the why can't I think of the word, when they have graphic representations of all the scenes and stuff like that, the storyboard.
Right.
So he had been working on the storyboard for his film for 10 years, which says to me he was focusing on the look of how certain things would be, as opposed to spending that time actually working on a script first.
Mm-hmm.
that made sense, that was a good script, and then working on the storyboard. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what it felt like to me. And that's really, to me, what the movie looks like. It's like, okay, we have all this imagery that we thought of. Now let's go and film it.
And we're ready, because we're ready to bring it.
But where's the story? Where's your character arcs? I guess that's, again, I just don't remember anything about the characters at all whatsoever.
Yeah, for me, it was a happy meal. And I know that's enough for some people. It wasn't enough for us.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And
this has been a delight having you on here, though, because, there's so many film professionals who, like you say, I don't want to say they're all kiss ass, but they don't want to really talk about certain things. They're afraid of unemployment. It's like, well, that's just as bad as being censored by your boss because you reported him not doing his job. I agree.
I mean, I'm a filmmaker. If somebody says I didn't like your film, I don't care. That's cool. You don't have to like my movie.
I'm the same way. I mean, that's just as bad as you telling me at a party, I really liked it. And then I see on social media, hey, he's talking smack about me.
Yeah.
That coward.
I'd much rather say
to my face,
I thought that part was, I didn't really like that. I'm like, yeah, cool. It's like, yeah, I get it. I mean,
I'm sorry I couldn't appeal to you. I'll do a better job.
Yeah, I'll watch my own stuff and go, that could have been better. I shouldn't have done that. It's like, I've never been really precious about the stuff I do because, I did it. It's done. I'm moving on.
We can do different. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because in Ron Howard's masterclass, one of the things he says right in the beginning is that every single movie you make will ultimately break your heart.
That was a good point.
He talks about how every movie that he's done, he did not get everything he wanted. Even very important things that he really wanted to get.
Even if he wanted it, he didn't have time, or
he didn't have time. They ran out of time. It was just, they had to move on. He just didn't, and that's just the way it is. It's like, it's, I mean, we have a saying in sound when we're mixing for something, and that is, to watch it is to change it.
Bingo.
And every time you fucking watch something that you've done, you'll want to change something. There comes a point where you just have to go, it's done.
That's all we can do right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, this was fun.
Absolutely. And we'll have to have you on more often.
For sure. Yeah. Just let me know. And maybe we can get some, maybe like a group thing on where there's a bit of a panel. That'd be fun.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up